This video will provide you with tips for using presentation aids in your speeches. Presentation aids help your audience think more clearly and assist them in grasping complex or abstract ideas. Presentation aids help you to show your audience an idea that's hard to explain with words. It also helps you to explain with words and explain visually at the same time. Some of the functions of presentation aids include assisting with thinking, to encourage retention, so saying it out loud and also having it written out in front of your audience helps with retention rates, to excite multiple senses, to engage the body and create interest, and to simplify complexity. There are so many different types of presentation aids. Presentation aids don't necessarily have to mean a PowerPoint presentation. You could use props, pictures. You could put data and statistical information in your PowerPoint slides. Flowcharts help to show detailed processes. You can use multimedia, so you can use video, GIFs, moving images, sound. Some tips for preparing your presentation aids include making sure that your presentation aid is assisting your presentation and is not the main focus of your presentation. So don't make everything revolve around your presentation aid. So this means things like not typing out your entire speech. A lot of students like to put their entire speech slide for slide on a presentation aid like a PowerPoint and then just read it to the audience. This makes it so the audience becomes disinterested in what you have to say, and rather than listen to your presentation, a lot of times they'll be reading it instead. Bigger is better, so bigger text is better. You want to make sure, especially when giving in-person presentations, that the text is large enough for the person in the back of the room to be able to read it. And also use easy-to-read fonts. Don't use the fancy cursive fonts in your presentations that make it hard for the audience to read, and use colors wisely. So for example, if I had used yellow text here, it would have been a lot harder for you to read. So be mindful of the colors that you're using. And if you have a hard time reading it, imagine someone in your audience, especially in person, if it's far away, they're going to have a hard time reading it as well. Another big thing, and this is for in person as well, when giving a speech in person, a lot of times presenters will be wanting to turn around and look at the presentation rather than the audience. You want to look at your audience while you're talking to them. You should practice with your aids, whether giving a presentation in person or recording it, so that you know when you have to switch slides and what you're going to say on each slide. And one other thing with presentation aids, beware of the handout. So if you're giving a presentation in person and you have a handout for your audience, you should give it to them at the end of the presentation. If you give it to them before you start talking, they're going to want to read the handout that you gave them rather than listen to what you have to say. Some tips for speaking while you're using slides. So usually you'll be speaking from some type of outline while you're giving your speech. So use notations in your outline to signify when you should switch slides. So you could put like the word slide in your outline, or advance to the next slide, advance to slide 3. This is just a little notation to remind you that it's time to go to the next slide, even if you are not sure if you have other material that you need to talk about first. Time yourself while using your slides. Sometimes slides add to the length of your presentation, so you want to make sure that you're not making your presentation too long. And be ready for equipment failure. So this one's really for in person again. A lot of times there might be equipment failure with a projector, with a computer. Maybe you saved your presentation onto a flash drive and it didn't save. So be prepared for something like this to happen, that your presentation might not work. So be familiar with the slides. In a situation like this, you might want to tell the audience what was on the slides. If there's images, describe it to them instead. just be ready to be able to give a presentation still, even if you don't have your slides to show your audience.